Welcome to the HVAC Time podcast, everybody. Today we've got Kirk joining us. Everybody should remember Kirk from episode 7. If you hadn't checked that out, I recommend you go do that. Today we're doing a remote. I'm on the road trying to get home, and I think Kirk's sitting in front of his house. So just bear with us if anything. But today I want to have a conversation around passion. I grew up in with a mindset that we everybody had some passion in your life, right? That was the overall general concept, and one of your goals that you had in life was to go out there and essentially discover your passion and pursue it and try to do something with it. That was the premise. And that's always kind of just stuck with me as what it was, and I've spent a lot of my life thinking about that, and so um, you know, here recently I've been thinking about that some more, and there's been a handful of podcasts, and I'll give Mike Rowe a shout out. I know that he can seem fairly controversial at times, for some people. I don't know. But for me, I like some of the input and some of the things he has done for the trades community. And something he talks about is, bringing your passion with you. And, he's made some statements over time that's really engaged a line of thought for me that, we don't, you may not have or your work. How about that? Your work isn't necessarily your passion, but that you have passion that you can bring to your work. And I've really been trying to understand this, and so that's where kind of Kirk comes in. And something I really appreciate with Kirk is he he has while there's a lot of things we can agree on, there's a lot of things we have very different views on, and we tend to stand on very distant ends of the spectrum on many topics. And what I feel like that does is that kind of gives us an opportunity to have some fairly deep conversations about those things and actually find a middle ground that is reasonable when we do come to one. So, granted, we don't always come to a middle ground in that way, but when we do, it works out pretty nice. So, anyway, kind of getting back to where some of my thoughts have been is I have a perspective that I didn't come into HVAC. I didn't get started because I had this dream to be an HVAC technician or to do chiller work or to train people or any of this other stuff. Now I did have a passion growing up for education. I actually spent a good amount of my youth envisioning myself as a college professor teaching history. I really enjoyed history growing up. That was a big topic for me. And what really killed that was growing up and seeing the education system. I knew that I wasn't going to do well in that environment. And that did lead to me making a decision not to pursue my passion for education uh, because of where that system currently stands. And so uh, I just went into the trades. Now, granted, I made a lot of other mistakes early on in my life that kind of led me to a place where I didn't have a whole lot of options in front of me, and I really just had to kind of take what was in front of me. And one of those options turned into a an HVAC apprenticeship that was, end of the day, it was nothing more than just a job that paid better than the job I had. And it was a stepping stone to just take me to the next thing in my life. I mean, heck, I didn't know. I didn't know what it was. But end of the day, my passion wasn't HVAC. Now, you fast forward just a couple of years, and I realized that there was a lot of things about HVAC that I really enjoyed. And I took the passion that I have, and at this stage, I view myself as somebody who is a very passionate person. I carry a lot of passion, and I feel like I took the passion I had and brought it into the industry with me, and then stood on that passion to build a career. And that's when I, realized that maybe I could use my love for education. Maybe I could use my love for serving other people and providing a good service and just doing a good job in general. And I think that it was a combination of those things and just bringing the passion with me that eventually settled me into HVAC that allowed me to kind of to take the shot that I had. And Kirk, you, I'll shut up here in a second. And you can step in here, but I have a very similar view from my perspective that you didn't come into your life, or you didn't grow up imagining ever being an HVAC technician, and you just kind of landed here. But I view you as somebody that carries a lot of passion for the things you do in your life, and eventually that translated into HVAC, right? I mean, just take over.
So it's funny that you mentioned, you know, not wanting to get into HVAC right off the bat and being passionate about it. It's like my dad, has an HVAC certificate, and he comes from an HVAC background, and I wanted to do anything and everything else other than follow in my dad's footsteps. He's a great person. Not something you want to. It's not something I saw myself doing going in right behind him. So I did, college for a few years, probably a few years longer than I should have. But I feel like I never got a degree. I didn't I didn't fall in love with any particular field I was going into. It was a lot of you fall in love with the newness of the field, whether it was architecture or computer science. But that quickly faded away. It wasn't until uh, I kind of ran out of options, and I went towards the HVAC side and finally just said, you know, let's screw it, let's do it, let's see what happens. And sometimes your parents are right, and uh, they know you better than you know yourself, and you come into it with just a lot of it just checks a lot of the boxes that you have, and you end up doing really well at it because you are um, interested in it, you're prideful in it, and that translates over to the passion that you see every day that I put into the work.
Well, and I find that true for myself in a lot of ways. I've said for a long time that what what really what eventually caught my attention and made me double down and commit was I began to realize that I loved all the different aspects, because I grew up a jack of all trades, doing handyman service work and whatnot, but a master of none at the end of the day. And so, growing up the way I did, by the time I was 10 and 11 years old, I was working construction sites on these house remodels or building porches. And so I learned carpentry, I learned roofing, I learned electrical, I learned plumbing. And I grew up in an area where we didn't have the codes, and so it wasn't like you had to worry about a code inspector, and it wasn't uncommon then. It was starting to become uncommon, but it wasn't uncommon then to have fairly young people involved in the process. So it wasn't like this weird thing that this just honestly, in today's standards, is far too young of a kid to be on this job site and working with all these people. And so I grew up in that environment, and uh, that's what I knew. But my dad also really enjoyed science, just in a general fact. He enjoyed science, and he always pushed a very heavy scientific thought process with most everything I ever did. So that did instill in me a enjoyment for it, because it was something I enjoyed doing with him, and that did carry over for me. And so eventually, yeah, that really began to solidify that I had all these things that I really enjoyed doing. I knew that I couldn't sit behind a desk for my life. Like, my I'm not that person. I can't do that. I need to be out. And that's one of the things, even in my current role, managing things, that I do struggle with, and we do have conversations around, is, there's sometimes I do need to be a little more admin than I allow myself to, and it's a struggle for me. But my point is, it's the passion for just being out there and being involved, and all the different trades, all those trades are involved in HVAC. I use all of those skills that I learned for, running pipe and plumbing, and all the electrical skills I learned and the codes, and the construction side helps me understand, building design and why certain things, and how structural engineering functions in that way. And it's just so many things. And then I get to throw refrigerant and psychrometrics into the conversation, which is the science piece. And I get to pull that science and theory into the practical, and what I see now is just a fascinating way. So yeah, I hope you hear a lot of passion in the way I speak now, but I want to hit home that, you know, it wasn't this way for me for a long time. And I went through a period of time where I wasn't even sure I could make a career of this industry. And something I've seen over time in different comments, especially from what I view as young people, or at minimum young people to the trade, is they're really struggling because they see people like myself online who has built a career and has now, you know started to put things out on YouTube and wherever else. And I carry a lot of passion about what I speak about, and I'm very transparent with that. And I think that sometimes we give this misunderstanding. I think that we just naturally, like, we grew up wanting to do this almost, and this was what we dreamed of our entire life. And I want to hit home that that is the furthest thing from the truth. And you know, next to being a history teacher, for example, the next closest passion I had in my life was probably horses. And there was a real time where, hell, I thought I'd go be a farrier and train and break horses for the rest of my life. And eventually, what steered me away from that was I realized that financially, I just didn't see it as a real sustainable option because I wanted a family. And it's another passion that I didn't pursue because I didn't feel like it was going to achieve the goals I wanted for my life.
It's funny you say that because I had, I I used to make candles. Ironically, I mean, it's going to sound kind of funny, but I mean, I used to, boil the wax, add some scents and stuff, make candles and, pour them out, and I would give them away for Christmas and stuff. And I always thought that that would be kind of cool to do, and, make and sell candles. But A, the market's extremely competitive. And, B is, you do a for, candle business. It's funny that, you, but too, going with that is, if you had done that for a living, made it fun, would you have passion if it became something where you had to actually manage the dollar signs on and all that? It would have. I personally believe it would take it if you actually do that for a living on a a business level. A lot of people aren't built to be entrepreneurs in that way.
Yeah, no, I think it's absolutely part of the case is, when your livelihood depends on it. I think it does heavily influence um, where that goes because you know a new passion of mine that I can honestly say that I've developed, and something, if you'd have known me uh, years ago, you'd realize how ridiculous this is. But videography.
I've heard how opposed to YouTube you were in the start.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like just videography. I there was no way. Like, that was something, you would have told 18-year-old me that one day you're going to get to a place where you love to create stories and film documentaries, and you're going to understand how to run this camera equipment, and that's going to also translate to you're going to be speaking to people and educating in a higher level, right? And just all these things that are going to be like you you would have been crazy. There was no way ever that this would have been true, and especially the YouTube thing. Like, I, I like YouTube and I like this whole social media thing because it's a avenue to reach a lot of people and provide some sort of help and a shining light that they can understand something that nobody else around them is willing to teach them, and realize that they can make a better life for themselves. But what that also turned into is I love videography. And it's not something that I'm trying to make a living out of, right? And because I've got HVAC, I've got other stuff in my life that I can make money with that. And so I'm out actually shooting documentaries now and trying to capture families' stories and do this whole extra thing. And it goes back to I found something I really enjoy, and I find it really enjoyable. And because I'm somebody that has a lot of passion for what I'm doing, and I've learned how to effectively apply that passion in a concentrated way, that I've now developed this very fun hobby and skill that brings what I see as a lot of joy to people, right? And I, I guess my point, I feel like I'm rambling, honestly, but my point is it's bringing the passion, and I feel like a lot of people have a lot of passion in their lives, especially people who you don't think you do. You think that we're somehow special. People like myself or like you or just whoever, right? You think we're special in some way, and personally I don't think we're special at all. I think we learned and we had specific opportunities that forced us into a place where we ended up learning certain skills, and in my specific case I learned something that forced me to focus my energy and passion that I had in a calculated way. And so I would say to people of our generation and those behind us, I know I'm not into video games, right? I used to be, but I'm not now. Uh, but I know that a lot of our generation are very big into video games, and for or even just say maybe it's not even a video game, maybe it's some kind of other activity. I don't know, hiking. The point is, there's something in your life that you have a lot of passion for and that you really enjoy doing. And part of what I see at this stage is that is proof that passion exists within you. And the challenge is not that you don't have passion for the thing you're creating a career around, is you learning how to find a way to take the passion you have and apply it to something that can give you a very successful future.
You say passion about video games, our generation and stuff, and there's a lot of kids that do um, play video games quite a bit, and your parents are always like, hey, what are you going to do? How are you going to develop a skill, with just playing video games? And you have thousands of people now that are on YouTube or Twitch, and they're streaming, and they get donations to because people watch them play, and you know it is quite strange to see that, from someone who played quite a bit of video games when they were younger, as well, and didn't know that I could actually make some money on that if I was actually still going that route. But It is kind of interesting to see that those video game streamers and Twitch streamers or whatever they are, they've taken that passion and turned it into something they can actually make money on, or even playing tournaments on video games. It's just very strange that something that we never thought as a kid, the video games were just for fun, and now people do you know literally $1 million tournaments for these things just because you're you know good at it. And I kind of want to bring up something too that you mentioned earlier is like HVAC's able to you're able to use a lot of the skills that you had that you grew up with in the HVAC side of things, specifically on the commercial side of things as well. And I think that's something that why you find a lot of passion in the HVAC side um, is that there's no matter what background you have, you can apply it to a trade. And I'm going to use HVAC here because, well, that's what we work in. But if you like working with like on financial side, obviously there's sales, or there's accounting or finance, or however they want to work that. Or if you like designing things within you, obviously you have system design, building design. You like mechanical engineering, built the first chillers. It wasn't an HVAC tech. I guarantee that they didn't think of using a pump as the first centrifugal chiller. I don't guarantee you they didn't think of using a pump as a compressor. It was probably some mechanical engineer that came up with that. Again, I'm not sure, but um, there's literally something for everyone in our side, but you can expand that to pretty much every trade, um, and you can get involved with it. So I think that's kind of why you see a lot of HVAC guys do this and are so gung ho about what they do. But if you are experiencing burnout, maybe you're just in the wrong side of the field. I know summertime, pretty much every field technician probably experiences burnout in some way, and they kind of wish that they were, an instructor, in the middle of August, rather than being on a rooftop where it's 140 degrees. Uh, so yeah, I mean that's just kind of how I think of it. Is if you don't like what you're currently doing in your field, you can always find something else. And go that route, whether it's administration, instructing, or just straight up being a field tech.
Yeah, I mean, it is true, and burnout is a very real thing. I've I think this past year, maybe the beginning of 2020, closing out 2021, there was a tremendous amount happening at that time, and I think that's the closest to burnout that I think I've experienced, like a severe burnout, more than just the what I would consider a normal seasonal swing. I think that we as technicians really struggle with our seasonal swings because it is, at least in our climate, it is extremely exhausting to survive a summer. And uh, I think that yeah, it's it's that was probably the first time in a lot of years that I genuinely questioned, uh, can I keep this up? Can I maintain this industry and this career? And it can get hard sometimes because you look at the guys who've gone before us and you look at how they've had to sacrifice their bodies. Many of them sacrifice their families, and the state that they're left in when this industry is done with them. And I don't think it has to be that way. I think a lot of the damage that they've taken in their body was from a a different way of life that they used to have to live. Because they came up in a time where the trades were not as safe nor friendly as I think they are now. I think as a whole, we have come a really long way in creating an environment where somebody can take care of their body. And so I think there is that, but I don't know. It's hard to see that, and then to be at that ledge where you're looking over it, and you got all these years behind you, and it's just, is it all still worth it? That was a challenging moment that, I got through it, and I even did a video talking about burnout and just having to take some time and just really self care I guess is how I would term it.
I know you and I have had that conversation of, how the industry can really chew up, take advantage of at least at least, the older generation, their passion for what they were doing was really taken advantage of with how they were, treated or how the business was running and stuff. And I know you and I have had that conversation about how, I have concerns see if if I was a service tech. And one of the things I'm really thankful about where we work here is that, we're able to kind of manage that properly to where we're not going to end up, broken and contorted by the time we retire. But, my little 2 cents there.
It's true. No, we have talked about it a lot, and I think that's an interesting thing. Okay, so you made a point I want to hone in on, taking advantage of somebody's passion. That's something that I think it's not something I guess I've thought about, but I feel like having heard it, I can relate a lot to it. And is there a dividing line between an employer uh, really trying to stand behind an employee that is really passionate, or is in a phase where they're applying a lot of their passion to what it is they're doing, and eventually crossing a barrier where they're abusing uh, what that technician is willing to put on the table, that is leading that technician to a place of burnout. Whereas if if that employer didn't push so hard because they recognized that that person was really into doing this and doing this well, that you know maybe they would have had a more healthy experience or environment.
It's, you hear about it all the time. Like we've had guys, come start work here, or interviews where, hey, why do you want to leave your old place? Well, it's because not you don't get off of work until you get out of your truck. It's that I feel like is taking advantage of the technician, right? He doesn't have a specific time he gets to leave. Like, yeah, the on-call tech is one thing, but the everyday tech, you've got kids, you've got maybe a 6 o'clock, whatever. I don't feel like when you're constantly, because I mean, you're getting out of your truck could be something that's used to, and now you're being pushed because everybody, and just because you like you doesn't mean you have the right to do it whenever they want you to do it. I think that's probably a morally ambiguous kind of thing, but um, I feel like that is something that you can take advantage of. And expanding even further, I think you could name a lot of celebrities that became celebrities. You hear about a lot of singers or athletes that kind of go off the deep end, after they're kind of done playing or singing. Um, they grew up loving playing baseball, football, basketball, performing, and they're being used like maybe they didn't catch a pass, or maybe they, their voice broke while they were singing, and everybody lambasted them for um for having a mishap, and they're still passionate about what they do. But I think that's like what to watch them play, and that's kind of so it, if anything I said there actually applies, but in my head it kind of goes similarly.
Yeah, no, I think that's an excellent perspective that kind of goes into the transition where uh, taking something that is your passion, like say it's something that you legitimately are applying a ton of passion into, that wasn't a career that turned into a career, and then when your livelihood now depends on it and your family depends on it, and just everything in your life is this thing that at one time had no external pressures. It was something that you just genuinely really enjoyed doing, and you got to enjoy doing it. And evolved into this ugly monster in your life that now all of a sudden, um, now you've got to take this thing that, even when you don't want to, you have no choice, but you have no choice but to do it. Otherwise, you don't put food on the table. That's that's a big crossover. But I think that's where we can draw a dividing line. I think that there is a line that could be drawn between, um, having something that we would traditionally think as this is my passion, and having something that, and having a lot of passion that you can apply to something. I think that is where that line may be.
One of the other things, with having your passion taken advantage of is, when a trade, whether it's, I've listed them already, but HVAC, and you've got people that know you do that for a living. How many times have you been like, hey, can you come over and look at my system? And they know you and they want you to work on it because you're available, right? They don't really, most of the time they don't care if it's actually you. They just know that you're going to get to them before 8 a.m. in the morning when they call another company out and they tell them, oh, we're actually 3 weeks away. And so, personally, for me, I, depending on the repair, I will go do a free diagnosis on their system. I won't necessarily fix it, depending on what it is, but that way they know that when they call someone out there, they're not going to get upcharged anything for, they can trust me because I'm not in it for myself. I'm not charging them any money. If they've got, a bad compressor, I'll tell them their compressor's bad. I'm not going to necessarily go replace it because I'm not going to be in charge of all that warranty and stuff like that. I'm not going to take care. That's not. I don't want that burden. But that way they know that when they get out there, and I tell them, hey, you have an R22 system, you might as well just go ahead and upgrade it. That way when they call another company out there, you know, and they tell them, oh, hey, you need a new system, and then now they feel like they're being ganged up on, they're trying to be taken advantage of for their money. um I put that foot down, like, my you're not going to take advantage of me doing work, but I will go and give you it and diagnose your system. And I've done that a few times to make sure that I protect myself, and I'm not just working from 8 a.m. to midnight every day because everybody has problems. You can't fix everyone's AC.
So my question there becomes: is that because you're passionate about HVAC, or is that because you're passionate about people and HVAC becomes the vehicle to express that passion for people through?
It's both, actually, because it's sometimes you end up working on. I mean, everybody's got customers they don't like, but you go help them because, hey, maybe they've got an interesting problem, or maybe you really like the person and you don't like the equipment they have. It's both, I think, because of that reason.
You tell me. You talked about early on in the conversation that you didn't expect to go into HVAC and nothing else, but uh, legitimately, the overall premise. I don't know that you've really spoken towards the premise of we are passionate people learning how to apply our passion instead of we're people that have passions that we have to discover.
I think passionate people, it just kind of encompasses everyone. As you mentioned earlier, everybody has something they're passionate about, right? So I think I mean, we're going to get, philosophical here, but everybody has a passion. Um, I guess I'm passionate about doing the job correctly, and it just so happens that HVAC is my vehicle there at this point. There's always something new that keeps me on my toes with getting it done or diagnosing it correctly. Does that answer it? I feel like
Well, I
I'm
mean,
still
yeah,
missing the
yeah,
mark there on the question.
it's not necessarily missing the mark. It's just uh, you you agree with the stance though that we all have passion. And
Yes.
well, so let's talk about some of the other guys. We don't have to necessarily stick with names, but okay, you're of a fairly young class in the industry still, and you know, with the guys that you're used to working with, do you see do you see that they were any of them did any of them come into this industry, because they're all doing phenomenally well, by the way, but did any of them come into the industry having wanted to be in the industry at any point in their life prior to getting into here, or was it just another opportunity that they had in front of them that became something more as they applied their passion to it?
I don't think anyone actually really wanted this up front. I think everyone else just kind of leaned into it with their passion.
Yeah, and I would say that was absolutely my experience as well. Is it even my classmates and the guys that I came up in the trade with. Now you always had the guys who sat in the back of the class in school, and you had the guys who were more in the front and more engaged. And I think looking back at this point, I think that the guys in the back, now for various reasons, but their passion was not getting applied to what they were there to do. And the guys in the front of the class absolutely did. They really took a lot of their energy that they were going to put towards something and really applied it to building a career for whatever reason, whatever personal reasons they had, I think are ultimately irrelevant as to why. The fact is, that's what I saw them do. And it's the same things that I was doing at that time. So I don't know. Maybe we're beating a dead horse at this point. I think we both can agree that for those of you who are out there who uh, who look at anybody who's really successful in this industry, whether that be somebody like I think Brian Orr is an easy example. He speaks with a lot of passion and knowledge in this industry. He's a huge voice in this trade, and somebody like him. Now, his life growing up, if I'm not mistaken, he came up in a trades family, and if I believe his father had a HVAC business of sorts. And I'm actually now I'm sitting here talking about it. I'm slightly fuzzy on his exact details of his story, but the point is, uh, he's somebody that I view as a very passionate person about just about anything he does. And when I see him commit to things, he really doubles down and he really applies himself, which is evidence of passion. And so I don't think he started his career in life thinking that he was going to be anything in the HVAC world or otherwise. But somewhere along the way, he found himself in the industry and created a business around it, got his family involved, and really applied himself and took all that passion that he had inside and applied it to something. And so he was able to develop from there. And that's my encouragement to you is, if you have passions in your life, stop looking at them as these arbitrary things that you just somehow naturally have. And I challenge that line of thought. And what I would challenge you to do is think about how you apply your time to the things you really enjoy to do. Now, I don't mean to say that you should turn those things into careers, because in a lot of ways, you probably shouldn't. But what I do mean to say is, there's probably things, and there's a reason that you're interested in HVAC. There's a reason you're listening to this podcast. There's a reason you care anything about this industry. So it obviously has your attention. You, I would highly encourage you to try to take some of the energy that you apply to whatever it is you do and focus it in some way into this industry and in this career. And I think something that's really standing out to me is Kirk and I really enjoy serving people. And we really have a passion for other people. And it is in that passion that we found that something like HVAC makes it to where we can, in a what we view as a significant way, make other people's day and life better. So, do you enjoy serving people? It's okay if you don't. Working in the trades, no matter what trade you go into, it is a lot of serving. So just bear that in mind. But there's other aspects. That's part of what Kirk was talking about earlier. There's other aspects of this trade where you don't have to really have a personality to serve, but you could have a personality to do a lot of other things and be very successful in this or in the industries. And that would be, I guess, my closing thought, my closing encouragement. And I would really, really push you to take some time to take some deep reflection around that line of thought. I appreciate it, everybody. MTT, make time for your family and get ready for the season. We're in the point of transitioning seasons now, or at least we are here. We're not that far from spring, even though
Probably have
it's
one good cold snap
only
left before it
February.
gets bad.
Oh God, I hope not. I'm good.
February
We've
is not
had
over,
plenty of
Holden.
cold snaps. I know. I know. It was the beginning of February that always hurts us. We're past that. Like I can, we're past beginning of February. We can, like we're good. We got it. It's back there. Anyway.
Much rather sweat than freeze, so I'm all for it.
I agree. Absolutely agree. Appreciate everybody. We'll catch you on the next one.